Hello, my name is Tony. I'm a Mist of Pandaria private server enthusiast, and today I wanted to share my thoughts as a tank player about all the tanking specs in Mist of Pandaria. Here are my current standings in Tier 14 on Shaylin for reference. The gold icon stands for rank 1. Keep in mind the other raid tiers aren't yet available on this server. Let's get right into it. Keep in mind that tanks are heavily differentiated in 10, 25 men, and even in challenge modes based on the tier, based on their gear, stats, and trinkets. Tanking in Mist of Pandaria, in my opinion, is one of the, if not the highest skill expression for tanking in WoW's raiding history, not counting Mythic Plus, where the difference between a 100 and the Great Bars can be over 5 to 10 times the damage and healing due to Vengeance. My experience and opinions are strictly related to Shaylun, so they may vary in Mist of Pandaria Classic. I'd like to start with main tanks. For your main tank, 10 and 25 man offers slightly different priorities. For instance, 10 man tanking in Mist of Pandaria is quote unquote solved. Brewmaster for main tank, Propeller for off tank. This combination offers the most utility and survivability for progression raiding in 10 man. However, in 25 man, Brew's utility is dampened by the amount of people present, so it gets outclassed by Blood DK. Blood DK is the best 25 man tank. It's the best anti-magic tank in the game, and has the highest single target burst due to its Army of the Dead and diseases snapshotting with Vengeance. Bear is playable and very solid on some bosses, even in the earlier tiers. It also becomes the best tank by late tier 15 farm and throughout tier 16. Paladin as a main tank, while viable, is extremely weak until tier 15 compared to other tanks. Protection Warrior is a viable 25-man tank where you have room for a Resto Druid to keep the warrior top. However, in 10 man, once it takes damage, it's heavily reliant on either the healers or a protection paladin off tank to keep them sustained. Therefore, I'd not recommend you play a Prot Warrior in 10 man heroic raiding under any circumstances as your main tank. Blood DK simply does its job better while offering actual sustain. For off tanks, there are two main talking points: how easy it is to transition into playing, whether it shares gear between tanking and DPSing, and how useful the class is as a tank without Vengeance. The king of off-tanks is undoubtedly Protection Paladin in Mist of Pandaria. It offers the most utility for both its raid and the main tank, even on low Vengeance. Retribution, on the other hand, also needs a lot of haste to perform well, and Protection Paladin happens to prioritize haste. It's a win-win. Protection Warrior, while I said it's a very weak main tank, it is probably the second best off-tank in the game. It offers all the utility of an arms warrior, while it also is able to gear for crit over dodge parry, and easily swap to arms during single tank fights such as Garrosh or Windlord. Blood DK has a similar situation to Prot Warrior, where you can opt for crit pieces while tanking if you aren't playing around riposte. Unholy is very easy to play as well. That Knight offers the same amount of utility regardless of its spec. Not to mention, Blood shares the same Reforge priority as Unholy with 7.5 hit and expertise, so you don't even need to Reforge between bosses where you swap. Brewmaster works as an off-tank, but really isn't meant to be one. It shares gear with Windwalker by default, but Windwalker is very hard to play properly for someone that doesn't have the required experience. If your Brew plays off-tank and wants to play Windwalker about once a week per boss, he will likely not perform very well compared to a full-time Windwalker main. Under no circumstances should you play Guardian Druid off-tank. It brings near zero utility outside Roar, which you shouldn't need as most people will have Engineering and therefore Nitro Boost, and Feral shares a completely different stat prio to Bear, while also being the hardest melee spec to play, in my opinion. These are my thoughts on tanks going into Mist of Pandaria Classic. Thank you for watching. If you have any more questions, feel free to comment down below.